Hello and welcome to TEQ. This is the last episode of 2023. And what better way to mark the holiday season than talk about purpose and really unlocking the power of purpose within an organization and how that is woven into the value that then drives success. If you have been following me for a while, I am your host, Carolina Milanesi, and this is TEQ. But you also heard me say often that doing good while doing well is possible and should be actually something that most companies aim for. This is not something I came up with as a tagline, but something that I've adopted after hearing the CEO of Cisco, Chuck Robbins, say this during one of his keynotes a couple of years ago. And what I think is very powerful about this tagline is the fact that oftentimes organizations shy away from talking about the purpose that drives their business and the benefit that the company gets from driving the business in a purposeless way. And I think that whether it is training and developing a broader set of talent or running a sustainable business so that you're lowering your cost or even solving real problems so that your innovation wheel keeps on turning, all of these things drive benefit to society and benefit to the company. And we shouldn't be afraid of talking about it because that is the only way that you're going to put purpose at the center of your company. Otherwise, what you risk is having short-lived efforts that are initiatives that you maybe cater and focus on for a few months and are very much dependent on the leadership of your company and who comes and goes with it. Today, I'm delighted to have with me somebody who knows a lot about purpose and a lot about driving actual successful businesses as well. And that is Brian Tippens, is the SVP of Social Impact and Social Impact Officer at Cisco. He's actually the first Social Impact Officer at Cisco. So I'm curious, and I have a few questions about that experience in itself. But Brian is has been focused on purpose and result-driven leadership for quite some time, and in different roles as well that vary the gamut of ESG, from sustainability to diversity, equity, and inclusion. What I love about Brian, apart from the fact that he's an amazing human being, is really his ability to lead and gather people around him to have those engagements that make a difference. And so really bringing stakeholders in within his own company and then the broader set of the ecosystem to get stuff done. And with that, I really would like to welcome Brian to the conversation.
Thank you for the kind introduction. Thank you for the kind welcome. I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much for being here. I know that you're super busy and we missed each other. I think last week I was in New York and you were in Atlanta and we couldn't make this work in the same place. So I appreciate your time today. And I want to start exactly from this point about doing well and doing good. You just came out, Cisco just came out with the 2023 Purpose Report. And in his opening, Chuck actually wrote, each year we are proud to share this report that demonstrate having environmental, social, and governance and corporate social responsibility efforts woven into the business strategy is not just good for the world, is also creates important business opportunities. Why does it matter? Because it seems obvious to me, but to a lot of people it's not.
So thank you for that. And I love that the report. It's a really powerful piece of work, and we're proud of it every year when it comes out. And I'm very proud of it in that, being an ESG or sustainability, diversity, equity, inclusion practitioner for many years, I've read many of these reports over the years. They might call them your CSR report, your ESG report. I love that Cisco's evolved its report to really be around the purpose.
Mm.
Our purpose, when you talk about some of the things that Chuck talks about, our purpose as a company at a top line is to power an inclusive future for all. And we draw each of those words out. And so that report is really driven around focusing on those various components about how we power digitizing communities and bridging divides and connecting the unconnected. It's around inclusive, the work we do around social justice and then empowering hybrid work and creating responsible AI. It's about future. We talk a lot in that report about the work that we do around fighting the climate crisis, not just our own kind of net zero goals and our sustainability goals and aspirations, but how we help our customers meet their goals as well through our technology. And then finally, it's around how we create conscious culture and kind of leverage our partner ecosystem. And so it's definitely core to all that we do. And it really drives business value. Chuck always says, good for the world, good for business. And we really mean it through kind of the work that we do and the work that we talked about in that purpose report.
Thank you for that. And as the first social impact officer,
Yeah,
how did you go? And I know a little bit, but I want you to
sure.
share with the audience. How did you go about
Yeah,
creating the role and your purpose within Cisco? Because I'm sure
definitely.
it's quite daunting, right?
It is quite daunting. Yeah, I came to Cisco just about a year ago. You and I met, I think, in my first few days at
Yes.
Cisco at our partner summit in Las Vegas. I came to Cisco after having been with Intel for some time and at Hewlett Packard Enterprise for a couple of decades, almost 25 years, in lots of different purpose roles, and decided it was time to do something a little bit different. I'd been a diversity, equity, and inclusion officer, a sustainability officer, a foundation leader, and I took a slight sabbatical and intended to take a break. But then I learned of the amazing purpose work that Cisco was doing and the depth of it. And the idea of coming in and create this new social impact office was not to create something from scratch, but to bring together lots of pieces, various programs inside the company, some very mature, some newer, but to maximize the value of those programs by bringing them together, have one coordinated strategy, and importantly, focus on measuring the impact of the work that we do externally. And so luckily, Cisco had some amazing programs at core. And those programs include the work of the Cisco Foundation, our nonprofit, our 501c3 that invest around the globe around education and economic empowerment and climate. And we do a lot of work around crisis response, meeting critical human needs around the globe. But weaving it all together was a commitment to social justice. The company created the social justice commitment and program in 2020. It's created around the time of the Great Racial Reckoning of 2020, but the work had really begun before the tragic murder of Breonna Taylor, of Ahmaud Arbery, of George Floyd. But it manifested itself in this amazing program with commitment and a significant amount of funding across 12 pillars of social justice. And some of those pillars are traditional notions of DE&I, looking in the workplace around increasing representation of diverse workforce, around conscious culture training, those typical sort of HR, what we call people in communities commitments.
Mhm.
But a number of the pillars of that social justice commitment are externally facing. $150 million commitment over 5 years to historically Black colleges and universities to help equip their technology and enhance STEM education. It also includes a $50 million venture capital fund that invests in women and founders of color. And those are just a few of those pillars of this commitment to social justice. So again, not a start from scratch, but really bringing together multiple programs to help maximize our positive impact.
You're rolling off those numbers so easily, but
Yeah,
obviously, there's a lot, not just financial,
yeah,
kind of investment. There's
yeah,
the people investment too, and a support
yeah,
investment. And one of the things that Cisco has set up itself to do in 2016 was to have a goal of
yeah,
impacting 1 billion people
yeah,
by the end of fiscal 2025. You have actually just announced that you
yeah,
passed that goal over a year early.
yeah,
It's fantastic, but
yeah.
what does it mean?
So let me first say you said something. We roll off the numbers. The numbers are significant just in that social justice space. And I talked about some of the components. The commitment was really over 5 years added up to about $300 million. And we usually
Mm.
don't talk about the numbers, but I think it just goes to show how important it is to us and really tied to the business value. And in your opening, you talked about companies that make these commitments and make these pledges, but then the programs go away because
Yeah.
there's someone leaves or the financial situation changes and you can no longer make that investment. And I think one of the reasons we've been successful and our program has what I call stickiness is because we ring fence those dollars. We make those commitments. A lot of what my organization does is execute directly through my team, but fund execution of impact initiatives with other folks around the enterprise. And setting this aspirational goal was also a big darn deal. It was a goal that Chuck set in about 2015, 2016, I think 2015, very shortly after he became CEO. He was sort of our new CEO at the time. And he kind of laid down this challenge. It was an all team member meeting to say, what else can we do? We've got such a history and it's embedded in our DNA to positively impact communities around the globe. We should set a goal. In Intel parlance, like big, hairy, audacious goal, right? We should set a goal and an aspiration around how we can maximize and innovate and bring our team members along to do even more. And out of that came a goal to positively impact 1 billion lives by 2025. It's a goal that we set, and we quite honestly, Carolina, didn't know at the time we set that goal how we were actually going to meet that goal, but we knew we needed that goal to drive us. And we were very clear about defining what positive impact meant. It meant when an individual has gained access to a critical resource, learned something, or engaged in a meaningful way. And we focused on the work of crisis response and learning and digital skills through Cisco Networking Academy and economic empowerment. And we knew that in order for it to be real, it had to be real. We had to be quite transparent. We even brought in an auditor, PwC, who did annual assurance to make sure that we were actually doing what we said we were going to do. And so, like you say, we were proud to announce that not only did we meet that goal a year early, we announced that in the purpose report here last week, 2 weeks ago, but that we exceeded the goal. It was actually 1.1 billion lives positively impacted and 1 year early. So I think that's something we're super proud of.
And it's interesting because I like that you point out when you set the goal, you didn't even know if we were going to achieve it. Because sometimes people get a little bit bored, especially in the press, right, of following these numbers along because the goals are long and you need to pay attention. But the road to that goal is as important as the goal itself, right? There's so much learning every year that you take from what worked, what didn't work, what you need to adjust, what external factors impacted positively or negative the goal that you had. And so I love that. I think companies are becoming more transparent, talking about this, the way to that final goal.
Yeah, and I will even add that we learned a lot along the way, and it's important for us to not only kind of celebrate the accomplishment, but also share with the business community how we did it, the types of causes we invested in, because we want them to come along with us on this journey. Because 1 billion it's a big darn number, it's a big darn deal. But imagine if others in the ecosystem made similar commitments and similar investments, we could change the world together, right? And so we were very transparent.
Absolutely.
If your listeners, if your viewers take a look at the purpose report, and if you go to cisco.com or search Cisco purpose report, you'll see links that'll take you to that 1 billion lives positively impacted with a blueprint of how they can do the same.
That's awesome. Cisco's is obviously an international organization and also multidisciplinary. How, as a purpose officer, how do you prioritize where you get involved, where you put your money and your effort?
I think there's multiple considerations. I think there's no exact blueprint because the world is constantly changing and things happen that we need to respond to. I would say first it's around our presence, where our big facilities are located, where our operations are. We tend to be a big contributor to purposes in building community where we've got big facilities. For example, we're headquartered in San Jose, California, and we do a lot to empower the local community around education, around economic empowerment. We've invested significantly and quite publicly in homelessness eradication in Santa Clara County. Santa Clara County is one of the biggest disparities of some of the most wealthy populations and some of the poorest populations, and housing inequity is a big deal there. And so we work for years through partners like Destination Home to provide secure housing for the unhoused. You mentioned you were in our New York facility last week. We do a lot in that local area. I happened to be in Atlanta last week, where we have a great new tech center, collaboration center in Midtown Atlanta. I've got a big workforce there that likes to get involved in community. And so we were last week sponsoring the Economic Empowerment Conference, the Global Hope Forum, and meeting with some of our partners over the weekend. So a lot of it's kind of place-based. I'd say also it's where our team members want to get involved, even if they're a location without a major operations. Our employees are 85,000 team members around the world. have a commitment to giving back in their communities, and we support that through matching gifts to the foundation or coming along with them on causes. But a lot of it, I'd say, is probably reacting to crises, right? We go where the greatest need is, whether it's a natural disaster. We're in the great position to provide connectivity. We're in the connectivity business. So when there's
Yes.
a fire in Maui or earthquake in Morocco or a typhoon in the Philippines, we're able to send our resources to help NGOs provide connectivity, in some cases connect refugee communities that have been displaced. And also it's societal crisis, right? When there's societal crises around the world, sometimes we're called upon to be a force for good, whether it's supporting, underprivileged populations in the United States, or responding to issues like disproportionate impacts on our as allies to our LGBT communities, right? We're always called upon to respond when we're in a good position to be a force for good. So it's like I say, there's no exact blueprint, but we tend to go where there's the greatest need.
And that is how it should be, right? It is
Yeah,
about responding to crises and needs, and being always evolving in your plan, and versus, having a cookie cutter kind of approach to this, because there's nothing about
exactly.
yes, about purpose that should be cookie cutter shape. But
Yeah. And with that, I'd say we're living in challenging times, right? And sometimes things
and
happen
that
for
is
which,
where I was going with my next question. You read my mind. We do clearly live in challenging times, and especially from a political
yeah,
perspective, it is becoming more and more challenging. And sadly, I'm expecting 2024 to be
yeah,
even worse here in the US as we lead into election year. How do you navigate all of that, both as a leader and as a company?
yeah. It's a tough one, and I'd say there's no exact formula for it. When there's a natural disaster, if there's an earthquake or a fire, my team can look at a rubric, a matrix, and look at things like magnitude of impact and proximity to our sites and customers impacted. And based on a rubric, they can point to a box and say, "Here's how we're going to respond." Societal issues aren't the same, right? They're very situational. There's political issues. There's brand issues, brand implications. There's the needs of our team members and how they want us to respond. And so every situation's unique. I think one thing that we do is always kind of harken back to our core values and our commitments to social justice and being a force for good, empowering an inclusive future for all. We also think about not the words, don't get caught up in the weaponization of ESG or whatever the terms are, just doing the work, right? And it's core to us to be a good contributor in the communities where we operate. It's important for us to have products that help our customers reduce their emissions and carbon footprint. It's important to us to look after the critical human needs of our team members and communities. And so if you kind of take away the words and the politics and just focus on what your values are, then I think that kind of helps us lead our way. Right now, for example, we're spending a lot of time thinking about ensuring the safety of our team members, our employees, and their communities and families in Israel, while at the same time taking care of critical human needs as much as we can and situations allow to provide, working through our NGO partners, humanitarian support for Gaza and the Palestinian communities, and thinking about the needs of our team members who may not be in Palestine, but in the Arab diaspora who have family members who are impacted, right? So as long as you focus on the fundamentals and the core of your values, then I think that helps guide us. Now, with that said, it's not going to be easy and it's going to be a
Yeah.
tough season. It's not just the political season in the United States, but there's a number of countries around the world
Yep.
where we do operations and have big elections next year in South Africa and Taiwan and other countries around the world. So stay tuned. It's not going to be easy.
Yeah, and a lot of those elections and moments will impact the tech industry at large. And so,
Yeah,
for the people that say it doesn't matter, it does,
it
one
really
way or
does.
another.
It really
You
does.
mentioned earlier the networking academy,
Yeah,
and the goal that you have one of the goals that you have is to skill train 25 million learners over 10 years. And in 2023, you taught 3.7 million
right.
people specifically on cybersecurity. And what I love about this is that I'm sure you will agree with me that there's a degree of responsibility that tech companies have to actually train us and make it so that we can both take advantage of the technology from a professional perspective, but also be prepared from
Yeah,
more a human and everyday moment perspective, um, to know what the impact of that technology is going to be.
Yeah.
I'm saying you're agreeing, but do you agree? Do you
Uh,
agree that there's a level of responsibility?
I totally agree. There's a level of responsibility for the reasons you mentioned, but also because, with the work that we do, not just in Cisco, but in technology companies generally, particularly with the emergence of artificial intelligence and machine learning and automation, the work that we do, if we're wildly successful, necessarily stands to displace some of the most vulnerable populations from the lower skilled jobs, right? And so I think there's this obligation as we kind of work to advance technology to think about how we retool and reskill and upskill those other populations that now might not have access to the same type of employment they had in the past. And that's why I love the Networking Academy, because it's not just around, the Networking Academy, when it started 25 years ago, was around getting people Cisco certified, creating Cisco certified network engineers. And that was great for Cisco and great for the business. But over time, we learned it could be good for the world as well, and expanded portfolios to be, as you said, cybersecurity skills and IT essentials. We're even thinking about weaving in some environmental sustainability curriculum into some of our Network Academy offerings. And so I think that's important. And it's also important to think about populations around the globe that traditionally had not had access to not just connectivity, but technology jobs. We think
Yeah.
a lot about the continent of Africa, for example. My boss, we've been spending quite a bit of time there over the last several months, thinking about how we can expand Networking Academy, but also brick and mortar learning centers for entrepreneurs to have connectivity and skills development. And we talk about how the continent of Africa by 2030 will have, I think it's a third, no, quarter of the world's population and a third of the world's workforce, right? So just as one example, the need to be able to provide skills education to help empower. And if we do that, provide connectivity and digital skills, I think we all benefit, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this conversation comes at the back of someone's interview in Italy. I won't
Okay.
mention the name, that said that we cannot lean on immigration because we need to keep the culture of the country alive. And I was like, oh
Yeah,
my goodness.
that's powerful.
Um, yeah, in the
Very
wrong
powerful.
way, in my view, because, especially coming from somebody who was an immigrant from South Africa to the US. So
That's powerful.
now people can narrow down who I'm talking about.
Yeah, there we go. You're
um,
listening. No.
let's talk about purpose and
Sure.
the fact that you made purpose your career.
Yeah.
How, or let me ask you this way. What was one of the most common challenges that you faced when you wanted to align your purpose with the company purpose?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. So I'd say I've been lucky in that I've worked for some really great brands who had some commitments of purpose. As I look back on my 3 decades in tech, it's been mostly around I'm a lawyer by training. I did some legal work for a while, but most of my roles have been around purpose in tech. But it's been for Intel, for HP, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and now Cisco. So great, big, mature brands that had a commitment to purpose, which helps. But even in those great brands and those companies, as a purpose leader, and your listeners will get this, your watchers will get this, you're constantly called upon to defend and provide the business case for the work that you're doing, whether it's diversity, equity, inclusion, or supplier diversity or environmental sustainability. You're never done. You constantly have to kind of dust off and provide that business case to maintain your continued investment in the space. And there's always some who are kind of dubious and naysayers, say, I don't want to do that stuff. I got to go sell product that I have to worry about. And so it's justifying and helping to articulate the connection to the business. I think that's something
Yeah.
you constantly have to do. Again, I've been lucky that I've worked for great brands, but that's always something you have to do. The one great thing about the work that we do at Cisco is it's commonly understood that it's good for the world, good for business, but drives purpose. I'll give you one example very quickly. I talked to you about the social justice program, the 12 pillars. One of the pillars of our program is expanding the diversity of our partner base. We sell 90+% of what we sell in the world are goods and services through partners, tens of thousands across the globe, about 10,000 in the US. And when we started our journey on social justice in 2020, they did an investigation, found a very low number. I won't share the number. It's a very low number of partners that were African American at the time, and you can't identify what the right number is. But that low number wasn't the right number, and so we made a very deliberate investment in training and education and creating what's now 300 and growing African American partners. And we're looking at other underrepresented communities to help to diversify our partner base. And while that might sound like philanthropy or social investment, it's not. It's not charity. It's creating business opportunity because those
Oh,
partners now
totally.
are creating net new revenue opportunities from a lot of our big enterprise customers in the market who want to buy Cisco, but want to buy through a way that can increase their diverse spend with women and ethnic minorities. And so, just one example of the way that purpose truly, truly drives business.
Yeah, and I think that the more, as I said at the beginning, the more we connect those dots, the more
Mhm.
obvious the impact on the business is going to be. The more, the less hurdles people like you, leaders like you,
Right.
will have in justifying the commitment and the investment, right? Because I think we've seen that on sustainability, for instance, right? Now the sustainability
Exactly.
has a growth opportunity from a business perspective, as well as, of course, a regulation that is becoming
Yeah.
stricter and stricter that requires transparency. The more people are talking about it, and to some extent even the politics goes away. So if we're able to do this for purpose,
Completely.
as a whole, I think we will all be better off.
I completely agree. And I think that's critical. I think that's one of the reasons why so many programs aren't sticky, because they can't demonstrate how the work that we do around diversity, equity, inclusion, community impact, sustainability really drives that business value. Unless you can articulate how we're enabling new business and driving revenue, or driving innovation, or bringing in the best and brightest workforce at a time when we're all fighting for the best talent, right? You have to be able to articulate where that dollars and cents business value is in order for these programs to stick around in the long term.
Absolutely. We're almost at time, and I never have enough time with my guests, especially when we're having conversations like this. But I want to ask you a question that is more maybe like a few minutes of therapy for me than anything else.
Okay.
How do you stay motivated, Brian? Because sometimes I
Yeah.
swear there are days where it's like, okay,
Oh yeah.
I am done.
It's tough stuff. It's tough work sometimes. There's ups and downs, and sometimes in impact, you feel like you're two steps forward and one step back, and you're
Yeah.
constantly fighting these battles. And you're naturally in a position where you've got to respond to all the crises around the world, whether they're societal issues or natural disasters. I try to stay motivated by just the wins. It's just, if you take a minute to step back away from the work, you realize that the work that you're doing is really impacting lives in a really positive way. I was in Atlanta over the last week, and over the weekend, like I mentioned, we focused on an economic empowerment conference, but we also had an opportunity to host a number of our customers and partners on Saturday at a HBCU Classic football game. I think it was FAMU versus Howard University. Big blowout at the big Mercedes
We
Stadium. And
need
we had
to compare notes on where we're gonna be, because I missed out, obviously, on
exactly.
being
Oh, so yeah,
home.
that's right. Yeah, that's right in your backyard. And so we hosted a bunch of our customers and partners at this great bowl, and it was great. And it was a lot of them was our African American partners, and it was great spending time with them and learning that through our investment and our partnership, we're growing their technology business. But literally, Carolina, every one of them, in addition to their technology business, has some nonprofit, has some purpose, has
Yeah.
some giving back to underrepresented communities, and so you see these downstream impacts of the work that we're doing. We create a program to help grow our partner base and diversify it, but they're changing communities everywhere where they're operating. And so it's just those examples of taking a minute to sit back and realize you're changing lives in a really positive way. I think that's what keeps me motivated.
That's awesome, because, as I always say to my kid, you people all do the work, I just talk about it. So my impact is
Exactly.
compared to the awesome work that you do.
Yeah.
We are at time, and I always say the conversation between me and you ends here on stage, but the conversation needs to continue, especially around purpose. So where can people find you and engage with you?
I am super easy to find on all the platforms, on social, on LinkedIn, or on Instagram, on X. It's just at Brian Tippens, BrianTippens, or briantippens.com, or connect on LinkedIn. Please reach out. I would love to keep the conversation going.
Thank you so much. I hope that you get some downtime over the holidays to recharge and relax a little bit with family. I look forward to seeing you soon in 2024. I always appreciate our conversations, and I always learn from you. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the time. I appreciate it. Happy holidays.